Sheriff Richard Jones of Butler County, Ohio, joining me, and the president of the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins, just writing an op-ed also warning about the threat at the southern border. Gentlemen, thank you very much. This first question is for the both of you. And Sheriff, the FBI, you were saying in that soundbite, directly telling you that it's not a matter of if, but when, because of the open borders, we are going to suffer a terrorist attack in this country. But our elected officials, including people like my own senator that I'm cursed with, Texas Senator John Cornyn, not only turning a blind eye to the crisis, but apparently enabling it by voting for legislation that effectively ties the hands of our Border Patrol and enables more illegal activity at that border. Sheriff, what did Christopher Wray tell you?
He didn't tell me. He told a group of sheriffs that met with him the same thing he told Congress. Look, there's more red flags going off right now than before 9/11. As far as the border crisis and what's coming into this country, the Chinese are, same thing he told Congress 6-7 days ago, that the Chinese are hacking us. Hell, they've hacked us. The Ukrainians did 2 years ago, knocked our systems totally out. Christopher Wray told Congress also that the Chinese are attacking our grid system, our electrical grids, our water systems, trying to get into everything electronically, our fuel system. And they're not doing it because they're our friends. They're doing it because they're trying to disrupt what we do here in this country. They want us to, they already know that people hate each other right now. This president's not helping us at all. He was going to be a uniter. He's a divider. Half of the country is divided, but more think that this immigration is a terrible, terrible issue. We've got 25,000 Chinese that came in just this year so far. And they don't sneak across the border. They're bussed. They fly one way. You just don't leave China because you want to. They're being sent here on purpose. They're bussed to the border. They get a little spot in the fence. They bus them over, and then they bus them when they get back through. The terrorist people that are coming across into our country, it's out of control. That's just the ones that we know of.
Sure. And folks, you know, in communist countries, you don't get to just leave. They build fences in communist countries to keep you in. So, Tony, what the sheriff was talking about with his fellow sheriffs, with Christopher Wray, it's not a matter of if, but when, as they've allowed millions of illegal aliens to stream into this country unvetted. What do you make of all this?
Well, Chris, the sheriff's absolutely right. This is what Christopher Wray testified before the United States Congress. But yet we see an administration that is pushing more money, billions of dollars. In fact, the House, or the Senate rather, passed $95 billion to go to Ukraine, to the Middle East, and to Taiwan and the Pacific. But yet refusing to deal with our own border situation. And going back to 9/11, as Christopher Wray said, there's more warning lights going off now than there were back then. 19 terrorists is what precipitated 9/11. And it was interesting. Brown University recently had a report out, an economic report of what the impact of that 2-decade-long war, the global war on terror, that was triggered by 9/11. We've paid $8 trillion. $1 trillion of that just being the debt that we've been servicing from that war. We can't afford to do that again. And yet we're refusing to secure our own border. This is absolutely insane. The American people see it, and that's why it's a bipartisan push from Democrats, Republican Americans who want to see that border secured.
Well, yeah, well, from the citizens, but what I see, Tony, is a bipartisan push to keep it wide open in the Congress. Sheriff, former President Trump reacted to this writing on Truth Social. New category of crime is developing, he wrote, in New York City and America itself. And it is bigger and more violent than anything seen in decades. It's called Biden migrant crime, and it will be really dangerous and bad. Good luck, everyone. You'll need it. What can Americans, Sheriff, do who don't have security details like our politicians do? What can Americans do to protect themselves?
Here, listen. Here's what I tell them. We just opened a class online, and it was filled up in less than 30 minutes. We have 400,000 people that live in this county, and we're going to start doing training online for citizens. What you can do is you got to watch where you live. When you go to large crowds, like where the Chiefs Super Bowl celebration was, they had 800 policemen there. They're not. If it was a terrorist attack, they'd have already said. But listen, no matter where you go, pay attention. It's old news. Pay attention to where you go. Watch so you can get out on exits, how you can get away. And you got to pay attention to who you elect in these positions. People here in the heartland are disgusted. The politicians won't listen. We're sending all this money to the Ukraine. We're sending it to the Israelis. We're doing all these things. We're going in debt so bad, and we're not doing anything to get our military where it needs to be. I tell people, and I'm not speaking for everybody. Some people will say, hey, you're preaching doomsday. I'm teaching you do what you like, but you need to be prepared, and you need to pay attention to who you're voting for. And sometimes the Republicans are just as weak. They get in the House or they get in the Senate. They won't vote in unison. They split up, and the American people lose, and we're all losing. I'm going to prepare as though they're here. And Christopher Wray says that all the time. He said it. Well, I am, and I'm going to speak up.
Yeah, you should, Tony. And I think I've only got about 30 seconds left here, Tony, but I want you to put a cap on this because, as I've said, the majority of Americans don't want illegal immigration, but sadly the majority of Congress does. And that should be a wake-up call in these primaries, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's just what the sheriff said. We need to protect ourselves, but we also need to make sure we're voting for those who will put America first and protect our borders. This is an existential threat to this country. We have to deal with it now. We can't afford to deal with it later.
Sheriff Richard Jones and Tony Perkins. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.